All right, buckle up, golf fans, because today we're diving deep into something called lower core golfers.
Sounds intriguing. Lower core golfers.
It's a pretty fascinating concept, and we're basing this whole deep dive on a research paper we found.
Oh, and what's the gist of this research? What's it all about?
Well, it's packed with insights about how our own body measurements can actually dictate our ideal swing technique.
You mean like our height and build and all that can influence how we should be swinging?
Exactly. Ever feel like you're fighting against your own body on the course?
Hmm, yeah, sometimes. Especially when I try to copy those pro swings, it never quite works out the same way.
Well, this research might explain why. It proposes this whole system of 9 core regions.
9 core regions. Okay, now you have to break that down,
So
Vera.
basically, it's like categorizing golfers based on their unique physical characteristics, and each region, get this, has its own ideal stance, grip, and even swing style.
Wow, so no more cookie cutter swing advice. This is about finding what works for your body.
Exactly. And today we're focusing on lower core golfers, which is just one piece of this whole system, but it's a good place to start.
Right. So let's talk lower core golfers. What makes them unique?
Well, the research points out some pretty distinct physical traits. For right-handed lower core golfers, you often see a wider
A
stance.
wider stance. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, a strong grip is another hallmark, and you'll usually notice the shaft of the club leaning towards the left thigh.
Interesting. So picture this, folks. Imagine yourself just standing naturally. If you feel most stable with your feet a bit wider apart.
Like you're really anchored to the ground.
Exactly. That could be your first clue that you might fall into this lower core category.
Now, on top of the stance, there's the grip. The research calls it the short thumb grip.
Short thumb grip. Never heard of that one.
It's pretty unique. Instead of the club sitting deep in your palm, it's more nestled between the middle and upper knuckle of your middle finger.
Almost like holding it more in your fingers than your palm. There.
Yeah, exactly. Might feel a bit unconventional at first, but apparently it's a key part of creating that signature shaft lean we talked about.
And that lean, I'm guessing, affects how they actually hit the ball.
Big time. It all ties into the swing mechanics. So we've got the wide stance, the unique grip, the shaft lean, and now let's talk about how that translates into the actual swing.
All right, walk me through it.
Yeah.
How does a lower core golfer swing the club?
So picture this. The setup and backswing start with the upper body leading the way.
Upper body first, so shoulders, arms, hands, all moving together.
Exactly. And then a deep hip rotation comes into play.
So there's this distinct separation between the upper and lower body.
Absolutely, almost like a coiled spring ready to unleash. And that separation is much more pronounced in lower core golfers compared to other styles.
I can see how that could generate some serious power. All that energy is stored up in the backswing. What happens next on the downswing?
Okay, here's where things get really interesting. The downswing is all about transferring that stored energy under the ball.
Hold on, energy transfer under the ball. That sounds kind of mysterious. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, think of it as leveraging that coiled spring energy to create an upward force on the ball at impact.
Ah, so instead of just hitting down on the ball,
Mhm.
it's more like a subtle lift.
Right, leading to a higher launch angle and potentially more distance.
So it's not just about brute force, but efficient use of the body's mechanics to create power.
Exactly. And remember that short thumb grip. It actually plays a big role in this upward energy transfer.
How so?
Well, it promotes a slight outward rotation of the club face through impact, which contributes to that higher launch we talked about.
So the grip, the stance, the shaft lean, it's all interconnected. Each piece plays a role in that unique lower core swing.
Now, I don't know about you, but when we were talking about that grip, I couldn't help but think of a certain legendary golfer.
Who are you thinking of?
Ben Hogan. That signature move of his with the right elbow tucking into the left hip during the downswing.
You know, you're right. Hogan's swing is often considered a classic example of the lower core style.
So the wee Iceman himself was a lower court golfer. That's pretty cool. But wait, isn't there a danger in trying to copy someone else's swing? Even a legend like Hogan.
That's a great point. While Hogan beautifully embodied the lower core style, it's important to remember that not all lower core golfers are built exactly alike.
So even within this one category, there are variations.
Absolutely. The research actually breaks it down further into 3 subcategories within the lower core. Lower 1, lower 2, and lower 3.
Okay, I'm definitely intrigued now. So what distinguishes these subcategories? How do you know which one you fit into?
It comes down to specific body measurements. Things like your stance width, your spine angle, even your shoulder tilt.
Wow, so it's like a personalized blueprint based on your unique body type.
Precisely. It's about embracing your individual anatomy rather than trying to force yourself into someone else's mold.
This is blowing my mind. But before we get too deep into subcategories, let's talk about balance. I imagine with all this power and rotation, balance must be super important for lower core golfers, right?
Absolutely. Their balance point is centered over the mid-arches of their feet, both at address and throughout the entire swing. Imagine being so stable and grounded like you could withstand anything out there on the course.
Wow, I love that image, like a deeply rooted tree that can't be easily swayed.
Exactly. And here's another fascinating tidbit from the research. Lower core golfers are actually less common among men.
Wait, really? I would thought with all this talk about power and a strong grip, it'd be the opposite. Why is that?
It likely comes down to differences in muscle mass distribution. Men typically carry more muscle mass in their upper bodies.
While women tend to have greater concentration of lean muscle in their lower body.
The research seems to suggest that. In fact, one study found that only 6% of top male golfers exhibited this style.
Wow, only 6%. So even at the highest level of the game, this is a relatively rare approach.
But rare doesn't mean ineffective. Some of the biggest names in golf actually embody this lower core style.
Oh, I bet. Give me some examples. Who are we talking about?
Think about Dustin Johnson with his incredible driving distance, or Jordan Spieth, known for his control. And on the women's side, Paula Creamer. Her swing is a great example of the lower core style.
So it's not just about brute force. These are players known for their finesse and precision, too.
Exactly. And now that you know what to look for, see if you can spot other lower core players next time you watch golf. It's fascinating to see how their body types influence their swings.
I'm going to be watching for it now. This has been incredibly insightful. I bet some of our listeners are already thinking, am I a lower core golfer?
It's the question we all want answered. What's so fascinating about this whole approach is that it shifts the focus away from trying to copy a perfect swing.
And instead encourages golfers to work with their unique physical characteristics. It's empowering to think that by understanding our bodies better, we could actually improve our game. So much of traditional golf instruction has been about trying to fit everyone into this one specific mold.
Right. This research throws that idea right out the window and opens up a whole new world of possibilities for golfers at every level.
I'm so curious to dive deeper into the nuances of each lower core subcategory and how golfers can actually apply these principles to their own game. But I think we need to take a quick breather here and let everyone absorb all this amazing information.
So it sounds like a good plan. We've covered a lot of ground.
We have, and there's more to come. We'll be back in a moment to unpack those lower core subcategories and explore how to personalize your swing based on your own body type. Stay tuned.
All right, welcome back, everyone. I don't know about you, but I'm still thinking about those lower core golfers and how Ben Hogan's swing fits right in.
Yeah, it's a great example, but we were just starting to scratch the surface there. We touched on those three subcategories, lower one, lower two, and lower three. Right, right. Even within the lower core golfers, there are those variations, right?
Absolutely. Think of it like fine-tuning. Lower one golfers, they tend to have a wider stance compared to the other two, and that shaft lean's even more pronounced.
So even more anchored to the ground, is that what you're saying?
You got it. And because of that, their swing, it tends to be a bit more upright.
Oh, okay, interesting. So what about lower two golfers then? Where do they fit in?
They're kind of in the middle. Their stance is a touch narrower, and that shaft lean not as dramatic.
So a less extreme version of that lower core style.
Exactly. Now, lower three golfers, they've got the narrowest stance of the three and the least amount of shaft lean.
Gotcha. So their swing's going to look a bit different then, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it tends to be flatter, more emphasis on the shoulder rotation.
So it's like a spectrum almost, right? With lower one being the most, the most extreme version of the lower core style and lower three being the subtlest.
Exactly, a perfect way to put it. And the cool thing is, the research actually gives specific body measurements to help figure out where you fall.
Okay, so how do you actually figure out which subcategory you are?
Well, think things like the ratio between your torso length and your arm length. That can actually play a role.
Huh, that's wild. So even small variations, they can make a difference.
Absolutely. And that's what makes this approach so powerful. It's not about trying to copy some ideal, but understanding your own blueprint, so to speak.
Right. Work with what you've got, not against it, right?
Exactly. It's like, how some golfers get frustrated trying to copy a pro's swing,
Yeah.
but it just never clicks for them. Maybe they're trying to swing in a way that just doesn't work with their body.
Yeah, I've definitely been there. Hours on the range, trying to mimic someone else, and just ending up stiff and awkward.
It's because traditional golf instruction's always been about one size fits all. when in reality our bodies are all different.
So this whole core region thing, it's like finally having a key that unlocks the door to, your own unique swing.
That's a great way to put it, and we're just scratching the surface here. Remember, there are 6 other core regions beyond lower core.
Oh, right. We've barely touched on the others. So upper core, middle core, and then what else is there?
Well, let's take upper core golfers, for example. Think someone with a more upright posture, narrow stance, grips more in the palms of the hands.
Okay, so kind of the opposite of the lower core, in a way.
In a way, yeah. Their power comes from the upper body. Less reliance on that hip rotation.
Interesting. So their body type literally dictates how they generate power and control.
Exactly. Their shorter arms, compared to their torso, it naturally favors a more upright swing.
Makes sense. So upper core, lower core, and then there's middle core, right? What about those golfers? Where do they fit in?
Think of them as the versatile ones. Balanced stance, balanced grip, and their swing uses both shoulder rotation and hip movement.
So they're not as extreme, but they have a bit of both.
Exactly. And their body proportions usually fall somewhere in between, letting them use both upper and lower body for power.
This is making me think about how much I've been trying to force my swing into something that might not be right for me at all.
I think a lot of golfers can relate to that. We spend years trying to mimic pros without considering that our bodies might work best with a completely different style.
It's like trying to wear shoes that are the wrong size. Never gonna feel quite right, no matter what.
Perfect analogy. This
Yeah.
whole core region concept, it's about finding that right fit for your body.
So it's not just about technique, but understanding your body and how it works best, right?
A whole new way of thinking about the swing, that's for sure.
I'm starting to see how this personalized approach could be, well, it could be a game changer for a lot of golfers, but honestly, I think some people listening might be feeling a little overwhelmed. It's a lot of information.
That's understandable. It's a lot to process. But I think the best place to start is with self-awareness. Just pay attention to your natural tendencies on the course. Does a wider stance feel more stable for you? Do you lean that shaft forward naturally?
It's like becoming a detective of your own body.
Exactly. And if you really want to dig into this whole core region thing, take a look at the research paper. It has all the details, the measurements, the guidelines, everything laid out.
That's a great point. It's not about making huge changes overnight, but rather figuring out what feels natural and comfortable for your body.
Exactly. Start with exploring your own core region. Experiment a bit and see what feels right.
It's like a journey of self-discovery, but on the golf course.
I love that.
Speaking of journeys, I'm ready to explore more of these core regions. We've barely scratched the surface.
Me too. There's so much more to uncover.
So after a quick break, we'll be back to dive even deeper into these other core regions and see what other secrets we can unlock for the perfect swing. Don't go anywhere. And we're back, ready to explore even more of those core regions.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot of ground with lower core golfers. But remember, there's a whole universe of swing styles out there just waiting to be discovered.
It's like we've cracked open the door to a whole new world of golf instruction.
Yeah, forget one size fits all. This is about celebrating the amazing diversity of swings out there.
And how those swings are connected to our unique bodies, right?
Exactly. So let's recap a bit. We've talked about upper core golfers, those players who generate power from their upper body.
Right, with those shorter arms compared to their torso, it's almost like their build is made for that upright swing, right?
Precisely. It's like their bodies are designed for that style.
And then we have the middle core, those golfers who seem to find that sweet spot between upper and lower body mechanics.
You could call them the versatile all-rounders of the golf world. They've got that balanced stance, balanced grip, and their swing uses both shoulder rotation and hip movement.
So they're not as extreme as the upper or lower core types, but they can tap into both, right?
Exactly. Their body proportions usually fall somewhere in between, allowing them to use different power sources as needed.
Makes sense. So upper, middle, lower. That covers 3, but we still have 6 more core regions to explore.
We do.
Mm-hmm.
And each one is fascinating in its own right. Like, have you ever heard of the front core?
Front core? No, that's a new one for me.
These golfers, they tend to have a more forward-leaning posture at address. Their swing is all about that powerful upward strike on the ball.
So a steeper angle of attack. Interesting. What about the opposite then? Is there like a back core?
There is. Back core golfers, they usually have a more upright posture. Their swing focuses on sweeping the ball off the ground.
Okay, so again, it all comes back to how the body naturally positions itself to generate power and control.
It all ties together. And each core region, it has its own unique set of characteristics. The research actually lays out specific body measurements to help you find your core region.
This whole deep dive is really making me rethink my own swing. It's like I've been trying to force myself into a mold that might not even be right for me.
That's a common experience. So many golfers spend years trying to copy pros, not realizing their body might be better suited for a totally different style.
It's like we were talking about before, trying to wear shoes that don't fit, no matter how much you want them to.
Exactly. This core region concept, it's all about finding the right fit for your unique anatomy.
So not just about technique, but working with your body, not against it.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah.
It's a real paradigm shift in how we think about golf instruction.
I'm feeling pretty inspired to reevaluate my own swing now based on everything we've talked about. But where do I even begin?
Start with awareness. Pay attention to how you naturally stand, how you swing the club. Does a wider stance feel more stable? Do you naturally lean the shaft? Things like that.
Like I said before, become a detective of your own body.
And then if you want to go deeper, that research paper is an incredible resource. It has all the specific measurements, guidelines, everything you need to pinpoint your own core region.
So it's not about changing everything overnight, but making small adjustments that feel natural for you.
That's the key. It's a journey, and it starts with that willingness to explore and experiment.
Well, I don't know about you, but my mind is officially blown. No more trying to fit into a mold that wasn't made for me.
It's all about unlocking your own potential, working with your body's natural design.
I can't wait to put all this into practice. Thanks for taking us on this incredible journey through the world of core regions and personalized golf swings.
It's been my pleasure. Remember, golf's a journey, not a destination. Enjoy the process of figuring out what works best for you.
And to all our listeners out there, embrace your unique swing, find your core region, experiment, and most importantly, have fun out there on the course. Until next time, happy swinging, everyone.